Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Turkish Airlines Flight 981 non-stop service from Paris to London. We're expecting a smooth cruise over the English Channel. In the cockpit sits Captain Nejat Berköz, calm, confident, a veteran pilot with thousands of hours behind him, a man trusted by his airline, trusted by his crew, trusted by the passengers sitting behind him. Beside him is First Officer Erhan Özer, sharp-minded, precise, a pilot who checks every dial twice, the kind of officer every captain wants at their side. Behind them, flight engineer Melih Özbek monitors the instruments, quiet, focused. The technical backbone of the cockpit. It is March 3rd, 1974. A chilly Sunday afternoon at Paris Orly Airport. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. Just another international flight carrying families, students, tourists and business travelers. 346 people settle into their seats aboard the massive McDonnell Douglas DC-10, a modern wide-body jet, sleek, powerful and built to carry hundreds with ease. Passengers chat, flight attendants help with bags. A baby cries briefly before being soothed. Everything feels normal. Everything feels safe. Pushback begins. The engines whine as the DC-10 rolls toward the runway. In the cockpit, checklists run smoothly. Hydraulics normal, pressurization set, takeoff thrust ready. The crew has no idea that deep inside the aircraft's lower fuselage, hidden beneath layers of metal, a fatal weakness waits. A weakness that engineers had warned about. A weakness that had already caused a terrifying incident on another DC-10. A weakness that was supposed to be fixed, but wasn't. Air traffic control clears the flight. Turkish 981, runway 08. You are cleared for takeoff. The engines roar to full power. The aircraft accelerates down the runway. Re-1. Rotate. The nose rises. The wheels lift from the ground. Paris falls away beneath them. Fields, roads and suburbs shrinking below the climbing jet. Passengers relax. A businessman opens his briefcase. A young mother adjusts her child's blanket. Students heading back to Britain settle in with headphones and magazines. Climbing through 10,000 feet, the cabin feels peaceful, bright sunlight pouring through the windows, engines humming smoothly. But they don't know that far below their feet, in the cargo hold, the large aft cargo door is under stress. It was never meant to endure. A design flaw misunderstood, ignored and underestimated begins its deadly work. For now everything feels perfect, smooth, effortless. Just another quiet flight on a quiet Sunday. Captain Berköz glances at the instruments and smiles. Beautiful day for flying. But this calm, this stillness, is only the opening chapter, because within minutes, Flight 981 will be torn apart by a violent mechanical failure that no passenger, no pilot could ever imagine surviving. A routine flight is about to turn into one of the deadliest aviation disasters in history. Barely 10 minutes after takeoff, Flight 981 climbs steadily through the cold Parisian sky. Everything inside the cabin feels normal, calm, peaceful. But down in the lower fuselage, in the sealed cargo compartment, a silent countdown has already begun. The DC-10's cargo door, a massive outward opening hatch, looks secure from the outside, locked, latched, ready for flight. But what the passengers don't know, what the crew can't see, is that this door carries a deadly secret, a flaw the aviation world already warned about. 3 years earlier, another DC-10 nearly crashed when its cargo door blew open mid-air. Investigators demanded fixes. Engineers outlined the danger. McDonnell Douglas promised improvements. But not all airlines made the modifications. Not all mechanics were trained. Not all procedures were followed. And today, on this flight, that failure is about to show its true power. Inside the cargo hold, the pressure difference grows with every passing minute. The cabin above is sealed and pressurized. The hold below is sealed as well. But the faulty latch mechanism on this door, poorly designed, poorly inspected, has not actually locked into place. It only looks locked. A ticking time bomb. In the cockpit, Captain Burkos and First Officer Özer go about their routine. Everything reads normal. Altitude steady. Engines healthy. Weather clear. Flight engineer Özek leans in, scanning gauges. Nothing seems wrong. Meanwhile, in the cabin, passengers read newspapers, sip drinks, chat softly. Flight attendants begin preparing for the first service. The aircraft vibrates gently as it climbs, completely normal. But then, without warning, boom! A violent explosion rips through the lower fuselage. The cargo door blasts open with tremendous force, tearing free from the aircraft. In a fraction of a second, the pressure inside the hold collapses. The floor of the cabin buckles upward. Rows of seats tear from their mounts. Dozens of passengers are sucked downward in an instant, disappearing into the void. Screams erupt. Bags and debris shoot through the cabin like projectiles. The rear of the plane twists violently. In the cockpit, alarms explode into life. Rapid decompression, loss of control surfaces, structural damage. Captain Burkos grips the controls, but something is terribly, horribly wrong. The plane isn't responding. The yoke feels dead. The entire aircraft lurches into a brutal descent. Below the pilots, the cabin floor, the physical structure connecting cockpit to passengers, has been shattered. Control cables that run under the floor, linking to the tail, are severed. The DC-10 is now a 300,000-pound machine without control surfaces. No elevators, no rudder, no stabilizer, just raw, uncontrollable momentum. In the cabin, chaos reigns. Oxygen masks whip down. People cry, scream, pray. Flight attendants fight to stay on their feet, grabbing seat backs as the aircraft tilts violently. A normal flight has turned into a nightmare, and the crew now faces the impossible, trying to save an aircraft that can no longer fly. The cockpit erupts into pure alarm. Red lights flash. Warning horns scream. Every instinct inside Captain Burkos tells him something catastrophic has happened, something far beyond routine emergencies. Control response lost. First Officer Özer shouts, wrestling with the yoke. The aircraft doesn't react. It doesn't climb. It doesn't turn. It doesn't obey. It simply falls. The DC-10 pitches downward in a steep, deadly dive. Try the trim. Hydraulics. Anything? Nothing works. The controls feel like they're connected to air, because beneath their feet, the floor is gone. The cables that once linked cockpit to tail have snapped like string. The pilots have no idea about the full extent, only that the aircraft is dying under them. Behind them, the cabin is a scene of terror. The floor in the center section has torn open. Rows of seats have vanished. A gaping hole yawns beneath where passengers once sat. Wind screams through the fuselage. Loose debris whips through the air. People cling to armrests, seat frames, anything they can grab. A mother shields her child with her body. A student grips the headrest in front of him, knuckles white with fear. Flight attendants fight to stay upright. They shout instructions no one can hear over the roaring wind. Masks hang uselessly. The descent is too violent to use them. The DC-10 plunges from 23,000 feet like a stone. In the cockpit, flight engineer Obek calls out readings with a trembling voice. We're losing altitude rapidly, speed increasing, structure damaged. Captain Burkaz cuts him off. We have to stabilize the aircraft, but it's not possible. Not with no hydraulics, not with no tail, not with the DC-10's lower fuselage shredded open. Still, the pilots fight. They push, trim, throttle, every muscle straining against a machine that no longer listens. The airframe shakes violently, buffeted by uncontrolled airflow. Panels rip away. The nose oscillates, diving and climbing in sharp, gut-wrenching cycles. The passengers feel every second of it, screaming, praying, calling out names. Desperate voices fill the cabin, mixing with the thunder of rushing air. Outside, the DC-10 races forward and downward, trailing metal and debris across the sky, a wounded giant collapsing under its own weight. In the cockpit, First Officer Oza looks at the altimeter. "Captain, we're running out of time." 23,000 feet becomes 18,000, then 14,000, then 10,000. Each number falling faster than the last. Captain Burkaz tries one last time to pull the aircraft level. Come on, come on. The yoke trembles in his hands, but nothing changes. Gravity has taken full command of Flight 981, and now, beneath the falling jet, the Ermenonville forest waits, a thick stretch of woodland outside Paris, a place where the final seconds of Turkish Airlines Flight 981 will be written forever in aviation history. The DC-10 hurtles toward the Earth with impossible speed. In the cockpit, the pilots are fighting a battle no human can win, but they refuse to stop trying. Captain Burkaz grips the yoke with both hands, muscles locked, jaw clenched. Pull, pull. His voice breaks between the alarms, the shaking, the roar of air tearing against metal. First Officer Ozer reaches for any control surface that might respond. Spoilers, throttle changes, trim controls. Anything, nothing. The aircraft is no longer a machine, it is a runaway projectile. Flight engineer Rubzi's voice trembles as he calls out the last readings. Altitude 8,000, 7,000, 6. Another violent jolt throws the cockpit sideways. The crew slam into their restraints. Loose items fly across the panel. Then a horrifying sound, the tail structure groaning under unbearable aerodynamic load. In the cabin, passengers brace for impact in sheer terror. Some grip each other's hands, some bury their faces, some scream until their voices break, some whisper prayers, others sit frozen in shock. Flight attendants try to shout instructions, but their voices are torn away by the hurricane of air blasting through the ruptured cabin. The plane's nose pitches slightly upward, not by design but by asymmetrical drag from the failing structure. The pilot seize the moment. "Come on, come on," Ozer whispers, pulling until his arms shake. For a split second, a fraction of a heartbeat, it seems like the aircraft might level out. But then the altimeter plunges again. 4,000 feet, 3,000, 2,000. The Ermenonville forest rushes toward them, a blur of green, brown and shadows, spreading beneath the falling jet, like a massive ocean of trees. Captain Burkaz stares forward, not blinking, not flinching. A pilot to the very end. "We're going in," he says softly. There is no panic in his voice, just acceptance and one final attempt to save the people behind him. He pulls the yoke one last time, using every ounce of strength he has left. For the passengers, time slows. Some close their eyes, some scream final words. A few whisper, "I love you." The DC-10 hits the forest at nearly 500 miles per hour. A deafening explosion shatters the quiet countryside. The aircraft disintegrates instantly. scattering wreckage across miles of woodland, carving a scar into the earth so violent it can be seen from the air. There are no survivors. In less than 3 minutes, a routine flight becomes one of the deadliest aviation disasters in history. And now, a broken aircraft, a shattered forest, and a stunned world demand answers, because a plane like this should never have fallen from the sky. When news breaks, the world is stunned. A modern DC-10, one of the most advanced airliners ever built, has vanished from radar minutes after takeoff. Rescue teams rush toward the Eminonville forest, unsure of what they'll find. What they discover is devastation on a scale no one imagined. The impact zone is a vast, charred scar carved deep into the trees. Metal fragments scatter like confetti. Engines lie torn apart. Seats and cabin sections sit twisted among broken branches. The aircraft is unrecognizable. Investigators arrive in shock. The question on every face: how does a brand new wide-body airliner disintegrate in mid-air? They begin piecing together clues: wreckage patterns, debris fields, cockpit instruments. Forensics teams study every fragment, every torn cable, every twisted beam. It doesn't take long to find the truth. The cargo door, the infamous outward-opening DC-10 cargo door, the same design that had already failed once in 1972, nearly killing an entire flight. Investigators find the shattered door latches, bent, sheared, forced open from the inside by explosive pressure. They trace the failure back to one cause: a flawed locking mechanism that gave a false locked indication. Even worse, engineers had raised concerns years earlier. Warning memos, internal reports, test failures, requests for mandatory fixes. But the fixes weren't fully implemented. They were recommended, not required. A tragedy waiting to happen. News spreads quickly. Airlines, regulators, families, and the entire aviation world demand answers. How could a known flaw be ignored? How could a critical part of a brand new airliner be so dangerously unreliable? How many lives could have been saved if action had been taken sooner? The hearings begin, executives testify, engineers speak. Mechanics explain they were never given proper instructions to inspect the latch. Families sit in the courtroom holding pictures of loved ones lost on Flight 981. The truth is undeniable. This disaster was preventable. Because of Flight 981, aviation is forced to change. Stunned regulators impose strict rules. Cargo doors are redesigned. Locking mechanisms are rebuilt from the ground up. Emergency procedures and inspection protocols are rewritten. Never again, they say. Never again will a single design flaw be allowed to slip through cracks in the system. The world mourns the 346 lives lost. A record-setting tragedy that reshaped every airline, every manufacturer, every mechanic's checklist. And today, every time a wide-body jet takes off safely, it carries lessons paid for by the passengers of Turkish Airlines Flight 981. Their tragedy became the catalyst for one of the most important safety revolutions in aviation history. A flight that lasted less than 90 minutes changed the next 50 years of flying. If this story gripped you, if it kept you on the edge of your seat, then imagine what's coming next. Every week we uncover another disaster, another mystery, another lesson written in the skies. But none of it happens without you. So hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you never miss the next investigation. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What shocked you most about Flight 981? And if you want more deep dive aviation documentaries like this video so YouTube knows to push them your way. This channel is built by curious minds. For curious minds, you're part of the crew now. Subscribe, comment, like, and join us next time as we uncover more stories where seconds decide everything.